smallest apartment buildings are 750 square feet, and the largest are 1,000. So it's gonna go from 750 to 1,000. Yeah, 750 to 1,000, and then this is some formula for the cost. The cost is gonna equal 90 bucks per F, which is square foot. So 90 bucks times F. So if F is 750, 750 times 90. If F is 800, times it by 90. 1,000 times by 90. Okay, the domain. The domain is what you plug in. The domain is your X. So you're gonna plug in 750. You can plug in 751, 752, 800, 850. You're gonna plug in anything from 750 to a grand. So it is A. Smallest square footage is 750, the biggest is 1,000, and everything in between. Okay, there's like 4 or 5 domain questions in here. So the domain of a function, the domain is the X, and the range is the Y. Brett. Domain is what you plug in. The input, the output is the range. So, it's easy if you look at the graph. So on your calculator, this is y. If you type in y equals the square root of x squared minus 3x plus 2, it looks like this. This is the graph it gives you. Now, if you're looking at the graph, the domain is the x. So this x number line right here, at 1, it takes off and it looks like it goes forever towards negative infinity. And then right here at 2, it takes off and increases all the way to positive infinity. So x exists everywhere from negative infinity to 1, but right between 1 and 2 there is nothing going on, so it does not exist. And then from 2 it picks up again and goes all the way to positive infinity. So your domain is going to be, let's see, it's going to be C. X is less than or equal to 1, because your graph at 1 took off one like this, or X is greater than or equal to 2. So right here is 2, took off and then forever. Number 3, Joseph kicks a soccer ball into the air. The ball's height after time can be modeled with this graph and this formula. So this is height and this t is time in seconds. So this is like 3.7 seconds, and that's 0 feet. So right here at the vertex, the maximum, it took 1.8 seconds to get there, and it is 16.5 feet high. So what interpretation is correct? The ball is in the air for 16.5 seconds. Okay, no, that's the height. The ball is only in the air for 3.7, so that was no good. The ball reaches its maximum height at 16.5, that's it. Because right there is the highest point, and it is 16.5. Let's make sure there's not more than one. It takes 3.7 seconds for the ball to reach its maximum height. It only takes 1.8. The ball is 3.7 meters away from Joseph when it lands. That's the X and that's the Y. And the X is time and the Y is height. So the only one is B. Formula for the volume of a cone is 1/3 times pi times r squared times h. If you're given the volume and radius and you want to find its height, you have got to solve for h. So you need to get h all by itself. So if you got v equals 1/3 times pi times r squared times h. Okay, let's get h by itself. Undo everything else. Okay, let's undo this fraction. So it's times 1/3. So divide 1/3 and divide this guy by 1/3. So if you're dividing a fraction, v, you can make v a fraction, v over 1. When dividing by fractions, times by the reciprocal. So times by the reciprocal of 1/3 times by 3 over 1. Times your tops times your bottoms. So you got 3v equals pi r squared h. Now these are both just times, so undo the times. So divide by pi r squared, divide by pi r squared. So you got 3v divided pi r squared. And that's going to match up with C. Domain. Okay, domain is easiest when you're looking at the graphs. So, this graph is F. F. The domain is the x-axis. So this goes all the way to negative infinity on the x, and it's going to rise, and as it rises it's going to slowly climb to the right, so it's going to go all the way to positive infinity. So f is all real numbers, so I can kill a, because the domain for f is only greater than 0. That's not the domain of f is only greater than 0. The domain of f is all real numbers. Okay, so it could be B or D. Now let's look at G. G, as it goes to the right, it's going to go all the way to positive infinity, but as it goes to the left, it's approaching 0. It's approaching this right here, but it's never going to touch it. So left, it is going to, let's see, G. The domain of G is anything greater than 0. That's what we're going for. Okay, 6. Which one represents an increasing function? Graph A. That is, as time goes on, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That is increasing. This one, as time goes on, it's getting smaller, smaller, smaller. That's decreasing, so it can't be B. C, as time goes on, it's getting bigger, so A works, C works. As time goes on, nothing changes. It doesn't go up, doesn't go down, stays the same. So A and C, you gotta choose C. Number 7, get x all by itself. Undo everything that's hanging out with x. So you got x times y minus x is equal to 4. Okay, you gotta factor it. Take the x out of both of these. So if you divide both these guys by x, if you factor out of x, you'll have x times, if you divide x out of here, you just have y. And if you factor an x out of here, you just have a minus 1. So you can change this to x times parentheses y minus 1. Now to get x by itself, undo that times. So it's divide y minus 1, divide this by y minus 1. So your answer, x all by itself, is going to be the same as 4 divided by y minus 1. Eight. Thank you very much. Okay, these V's. If it is a V, that is absolute value. Jansen. What flips this upside down? If you put a negative out in front, it's going to flip it upside down. So we're looking for, we can kill C and we can kill D. So it's either going to be A or B. Now the vertex is located right there. It is over 4 and it is up 2. So it's going to be x minus h plus k. So what we're looking for is going to be negative out front, because that's what flips it upside down. x minus 4 plus 2. So we gotta go for A. Number 9, Steven plans on increasing the amount of money in his savings account by 30% every year. He's currently got 600 bucks. How much is he gonna have in the account in 4 years? So you take his 600 bucks and you're gonna times it by 1 plus 30%. Hold on.
What's what?
Compound interest.
When you get interest.
This guy's a compound interest, which is the principal times 1 plus the rate divided by compound. How many times you compound it? Times the exponent is going to be time, number of years, times n. So we got to set up 600 bucks. What you deposit, 1 plus 0.3 divided by, you're only going to compound it once a year. So he's only going to do it once a year. So n is 1. And 4 is the time in years. He's going to leave it in for 4 years times 1. So you do that, and that gives you 1714. Number 10. That was 10. Oh, this one's 10. Huh. What? We mess up. Jansen. A square has sides that are x plus 5 long. So that means it's x plus 5 there and x plus 5 there. So we got to find the area. Area is just base times height. So it is going to be x plus 5 times x plus 5, and then you got to distribute. X times x is going to give you x squared. X times 5 is going to give you 5x. 5 times x is going to give you 5x. 5 times 5 is going to give you 25. So x squared plus 10x plus 25 matches with D. 11. M is equals 3 times the square of is, so we got a square of the sum of n and 2. So the sum, that's add. So n plus 2 is add, but we got to 3 times the square, so you got to square it, and then you got to times that by 3. So that is going to be C. M is going to be the sum of n and 2 squared times 3. 12. Jansen, look at this. Okay, Jansen, this is a cubic because it changes directions twice. So we go, there's a 1 change, there's 1 change. So if it changes twice, it's going to be cubic. Now here are your zeros. Find the zeros. The zeros are 0. There's a 0 right there at 3. And there's a 0 right there at 5. If you know the zeros, you can work backwards and write the equation. So here are your zeros. It's going to look like this. X minus 0. X minus 3. X minus 5 equals 0. Because these are what you plug in to make a 0. So if you drop a 5 right in there, 5 minus 5 is 0. 0 times that is 0. So if you know your zeros, work backwards. It looks like this. Now you got to distribute. So it's going to be x times x is x squared. X times minus 5 is minus 5x. Minus 3 times x is minus 3x. Minus 3 times minus 5 is plus 15. But then you got to times that by x. So x times x squared is going to be x cubed. A minus 5x and minus 3x is really a minus 8x. So if you times that by x, it's going to be minus 8x squared. And if you times the x to the 15, it's going to be plus 15x. So x cubed minus 8x squared plus 15 14x. That's the equation. Now, once you got the equation, this function is positive when it is above 0 on the y. So it's positive right here, from here all the way to here. So when this part is positive right there, because it's above the y. And this part is positive, and this is going to go all the way to infinity. So all this is positive. It's negative when it's below the y. So this part is negative, and this to negative infinity is negative. So it's positive between 0 and 2. So x has got to be greater than 0 and less than 2. And then it's positive again when x is bigger than 5. All the way to infinity. It's negative when x is less than 0. And when x is sandwiched between 3 and 5. X is bigger than 3 and smaller than 5. That's when it's negative. Okay, 14. An employer uses a function to calculate each employee's salary. The input is the number of hours, and the output is the money. So the input is hours, the output is money. Since the employee's time clock is in 15-minute intervals, what is a good domain? Domain is hours. So this is your domain right here. So since we're going in 15-minute intervals, so you could start at 0 hours, then a quarter of an hour, a half of an hour, 3/4 of an hour, 1 hour. So the positive multiples of 1/4 is your answer.